folks. I'm Bob May from Mineral Point, Wisconsin. We own and operate May Cattle Company, been here for several years. Was glad to have Taylor come down today and do a virtual show clinic. This is a first for me. I like to do the personal ones where we come and actually see you and answer as many questions as you have for us. I'll give you all the information I have today. It's not the only way to do something, but it's the way we do it here. We don't keep any secrets. There's no shortcuts. We'll answer any questions that was on our sheet, and I'll even give an email at the end of this if someone wants to contact me about a feeding question. And I would tell you up front, it's easier for me to answer a feeding question if I actually see your livestock, but we'll do the best we can under the circumstances. Hopefully a year from now we'll be joking around about COVID-19.
Okay, first question. Does my steer get more protein from ground corn or rolled corn?
The answer to that would be the protein doesn't change, the digestibility changes. Taylor, as I was telling you before we started this, we've got a bunch of cows we're getting ready to breed right now, and we're giving them 5 pounds a day. They're just a little thinner than I'd like them. We want to get them cycling good. And because of the cost of cracking the corn, we're giving those whole corn. A lot of that's passing through them. Now, if you crack the corn, I'm going to throw a figure out here. I'm not sure it's completely accurate, that I think you get 50 to 60% digestibility when you crack the corn. And then if you cook the corn, I think it goes up in the 90s. So it's not a matter of the protein level changing, it's a matter of the digestibility changing. And if I might add to that, if you're showing show cattle, feeding show cattle, excuse me, I would prefer you don't feed whole corn. I'd prefer you crack it, and you want to be pretty fussy about that. You don't want to crack to the degree where you're getting a lot of fines, where it turns into a hog feed looking. Then you're promoting bloat in your cattle. That's not good either. You want some roughage to it. So coarse cracked corn is what I would prefer.
Question 2. What should I do for a steer or heifer that has dry skin in the winter?
Okay, dry skin in the winter. First of all, you know, I always get asked the question, how do we manage our cattle in the winter? And quite honestly, in the winter, our prospect steers that we're going to show the next August, we don't wash them every day. We do have a heated room to wash them in. Some people don't have that, so they got to wash those cattle when the weather will allow it. But keeping those cattle well bedded and clean is probably the first thing I would tell you. And then secondly, when you do have the opportunity to wash them, and this is something that no matter where I go in America, even kids that have shown for years and years, you'd be amazed at the lack of understanding of getting one dry. And so if you don't get them dry, you're going to have dandruff. And I'm talking their chest floors. We had a kid here one time that didn't dry his steer, turned him out overnight. He stayed here, and that steer froze his chest. It was real cold. He didn't get him dry enough. So you got to get them dry. In the winter time, we only wash our steers, and keep in mind, we have a heated room. It's what we do for a living. And those cattle that we're going to take to the state fair, per se, the next August, they only get washed about twice a week. But with that, after we wash them and get them bone dry, this is a go-to product for me. It's called ProCharge. We use this stuff by the case, and it's really good for their hide. It's really good for their hair. We put a lot of this on, we comb it in, and then we blow it in, and we blow it down to the hide, and we turn that calf out with ProCharge in his hair. But he's got to be dry first. He's got to be dry first. So we support Weaver. We represent Purina Feeds and Weaver. It's the only two, other than my own cattle, that's the only two things we endorse. They come out with a new product called Healthy Hair and Hide. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. You can't tear this out of my hands. I love this stuff, but my crew says they think this stuff is just as good for the hide and hair quality, keeping that hide dry. If I might add something in terms of their hide, if you get cattle, a lot of times cattle in the spring of the year will start itching, and that's, people automatically think their cattle got lice. It's not necessarily the case, but one thing, up till 6 months ago, I promoted a product called Cydectin. We would pour our cattle 4 or 5 times a winter with Cydectin. It's of an oil base. I like the oil base and not the alcohol base simply because of what we're talking about, the dandruff and the hide health. But with that being said, I think our cattle, we used Cydectin for so long that it quit working. So when we got back from Denver, a set of cattle we had here on feed. They were kept clean, they were kept bedded good, but they'd done a decent amount of rubbing while we were gone. And I was really concerned about that. Now we switched to a product called Cleanup, and it flat cleaned them up. So I don't know if we just used the Sidectin for so long that it quit working, but Cleanup's the product we use now. That's something you'll want to stay on top of as far as keeping your hide healthy.
Is there a routine that you recommend for winter hair care?
Well, the routine would be kind of just like I said, keep them things bedded good. You know, they do not need to be laying in urine and manure. Keep the bedding good under them. I don't like cattle enclosed in a building. I like cattle to be able to go out in the lot. Every lot we have here has an open-sided shed. It doesn't matter if it's 20 below zero or 40 above. We don't lock them in a barn. They sweat and then they get pneumonia. And then again, like I said, we go probably a couple times a week, and I'm talking about cattle that we're gonna take to the state fair next year. Now, it's a little different story if we show Hereford heifers also. And if we're showing them, you know, throughout the winter, that they obviously get washed 4 or 5 times a week, soaked a couple times a week, otherwise they just get rinsed. We don't use an obscene amount of soap, just whenever it calls for it, if they're dirty, if they get a little manure on a hip or whatever the case might be. In the summertime, same thing. We use soap roughly twice a week. I remember one time in 2012, we had a drought year that year, and it was incredibly dry and dusty. And we you know, every situation's different, and we were soaping those 3 or 4 times a week because they'd come in so dusty and dirty in the mornings.
What do you recommend for an initial clip this time of year on your cattle?
The timing today, what is today, the 29th of April?
Yep.
Okay. Timing today the timing couldn't be any better as far as we talk about hair care and going into the summer. And hopefully every one of you listening to this will get to go to your county fair. At this point, we were talking about this before this clinic started just now. You know, are there gonna be fairs? A couple things I want to address. You kids keep working like your fair is going to happen. It's your project. Keep it going. You know, if you know, I suppose right now there's a 50% chance you're going to have your show, so you certainly don't want to back off on the work of it. Secondly, it's your project, so finish your project, even if you get the disappointing news that it's not gonna happen. So keep working that hair, but timing wise, hair grows, it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter if you live in Texas or northern Wisconsin, hair grows in a 90-day cycle. So right now as we speak, we would have went to Black River Falls, which some of you watching this go to that show also. We love the timing of that show because all the calves we've sold in the state, or last year in the case of my daughter still being eligible for state fair, we love going to that show for several reasons. One is to compete. Secondly was the timing of clipping the hair. And thirdly was to get those cattle in a show ring to prep them for a bigger day that lies ahead in August, be it their county fairs or their state fairs. So it was a training exercise, but clipping cattle will promote hair loss, okay? Right now, and I mean right now, you kids need to be getting last year's dead hair out of your calf. If you're, you know, you might even be wondering, well, how do I know if there's still dead hair in him? If you got a black calf and he's got brown, rusty looking hair, that's dead hair. That's last year's hair. If you got a Hereford, and again, if you got a red Hereford, a dark red Hereford, and that hair's rusty colored, that's last year's hair, and that needs to come out. Some people would tell you to shear your calf off. I don't like to shear them off. We like to use the shedding comb, and I can't answer how many times you gotta do this because every calf's different. But if you shear your calf off, this here will take dead hair out, okay? But it'll leave the new hair. So my theory on shearing one is God has already put some new hair in that dead hair. And if I shear that calf, I'm making that calf start completely over. So every day around here right now, and we don't know if we're gonna have a Hereford Junior National. We don't know. My daughter just called before this started and she said about a show that they were potentially gonna cancel. It wasn't the Junior National, it was a month earlier than our Junior National. But we're shedding those heifers out every single day, assuming that there's gonna be a Junior National, and we're a little less than 90 days out right now. So we gotta get the old hair finished out, we're just about done, so we can have the best, freshest hair that's possible mid-July.
Okay, regarding conformation on your cattle, tell us about some attributes and flaws that you look at when picking show stock.
I gotta back up.
Sure.
Can I, on this?
Yeah, go
Okay.
for it.
For you kids that are gonna get one of these, and this is a tool, I'm not here to get you to spend a bunch of money on product, be it Weaver product, be it Purina Feeds, but I'm gonna tell you what we do and the importance of it. I suggest you use this on a dirty head of cattle. Now, I don't mean a manure, wet head of cattle, but a dusty, dirty head of cattle before you wash them. I think the back drag is much better on this, and it'll pull more of the old dead hair out if it's on a calf that's dusty and needs a bath. So do it first. You can go from their tail to their ears with it, you can go down with it, you can go backwards with it, you can go any direction you want, wherever you think the hair's coming out. But as long as that hair's coming out and it's real cottony like sheep's wool, you're not done. Now cattle all start losing their hair the same way. They lose it on behind their poll, down their neck, from their top down. So the reason that's important, if you got a black calf, that top is probably already real black. That's new hair, leave it alone. Just start on the rusty looking stuff and work your way down. Okay, now the next question.
Okay, so regarding conformation, tell us about attributes and flaws that you would look for or look against.
Okay, do you want me to talk about steers and then heifers?
Sure.
Okay, First of all, it crosses both lines when it comes to structure, okay? Structure is first and foremost. You know, you see a lot of cattle, we do it ourselves, we sell cattle online here, okay? We'll have a sale in September, we'll sell some online. If you're buying cattle online, you wanna make sure, and if you're not sure you understand what I'm talking about, get somebody you trust that does. You do not wanna buy cattle in an online sale or out in a pasture. You wanna see them from their ankles to the ground. You wanna see those cattle, you wanna see if they're rigid at their ankle, if they're, and if, you know, I know you, Taylor, you show horses, you said. You know, you want some cushion down at the ground, you want some length, what we call a pastern on a head of cattle. You want some slope to their pastern. If they're stiff on their pastern, then they're gonna pop their ankles, and almost every judge is gonna beat you because of that. So that's my main thing on a steer or a heifer is first I look at their structure. Steers, we want them powerful. Back in the days when I started showing, cattle weren't near as good a haired as they are now. They're phenomenal haired now. We got the products to make them even better haired. But I like one that's got thickness, got structure. I don't go overboard on bone. I like cattle to have big bone, but if you get them too huge bone, a lot of times you get arthritic joints. So, you know, you gotta be careful how you say that, or I gotta be careful because people are the concept, well, he don't think they need any bone. And that's not what I'm saying. It's just, I don't think you need to go overboard on the bone. Big top, nice chested, good neck, good headed. And then the heifers, you know, you want them to have a natural belly sweep. Steers too, actually. After all the years of doing this, the cattle, the show ring goes in so many trends. You know, back in the day when I started, we wanted them tall. The cattle that we were winning with back in those days, they would have stood last in class today, and they were winning back then. So you kind of got to keep up with the times. When possible, it's nice to know who's judging, and I don't mean that from oh, he knows the judge. I just mean type and kind. I mean, if I'm judging your show, I want cattle to be good looking and sound. The next game might be just biggest butt wins. So that's where it's kind of nice to know who's judging. But I think to sum it up, I think you got to start with a good structured one. You just got to start with good structure, be it a steer or a heifer.
Good. So, feeding cattle together, what do you recommend? Do they need to be separated?
Feeding cattle together, when you start out, and again, I'm not promoting you go out and spend a bunch of money to get a bunch of stuff around your barn, but I do think when you're feeding cattle together, you have to have some knowns going in. Like if you're feeding two steers together, you kind of need to know what their weight spread is, or maybe there isn't a weight spread. But when you start feeding them together, at some point in the near future, you need to weigh them again, because if you're pouring 20 pounds of feed in the bunk, and in theory you walk to the house and think, okay, we're giving them each 10 pounds of feed. That may not be the case. One of them may be a fast eater and may be eating 12 pounds, the other one may be only getting 8 pounds. So that's one reason I don't like feeding them together. I think you can manage your project better if they're not together. Now, if you've got the lot space, what I would prefer is that you feed them separate, but put their bunks on a common fence. So cattle do better if they got a buddy. So we like to have a fence, a bunk, on each side of a fence. So they're head to head when they eat. They still think they're eating with their buddy. I think that's the best way to feed them. Now, I know a lot of people, they might have 3 kids showing, maybe they got a calf apiece or 2 calves apiece, all of a sudden you got a lot of cattle in the lot. That's not the perfect scenario. It's livable, but it's not the perfect scenario. And another reason why it's not suggestible probably is because more than likely, say you got 3 cattle in the lot, they're probably not all of the same phenotype. So say it's steers, one of them might be a little taller, longer bodied. He needs a lot of energy pushed to him. And the one with him may be a shorter stalled, shorter face, shorter canted bone, shorter sided, one that's gonna get mature quick on you. Well, and I don't want him getting as much energy. I want to grow him with a little more protein, a little more fiber. So that's kind of the rule of thumb around here is, and Taylor, as I told you when we started this, theoretically, at this time of year, we don't know who's judging the state fair, okay? Now this, I'm talking in the past, because we can't go to the state fair, because we're too old. But theoretically, we would buy 2 steers, and they wouldn't be of the same type and kind, simply because we don't know who's judging. We don't know what kind he likes. So we'd buy 2 steers if we could find the 2 we liked and we could afford them. And we would, obviously, if they're not made alike, they probably aren't going to be fed alike. So that's kind of how we did that. Another thing that I would like to address, if you're feeding heifers, we like to keep our heifers fairly lean. We're getting ready literally in the next week to breed our heifers for going into next year. And they're not thin, but they're lean. They're leaner. And we don't want to get them so fat that we can't get them pregnant, okay? And then once we know they're confirmed pregnant, we'll ultrasound them at 30 days. If we know they're pregnant, then we might start pouring the wood to them a little more, to be suitable for the show ring. But it's very important if you're showing heifers that you keep good records, very good records on when your heifer's in heat. Because that's a pretty good way to ruin one. Let's just say you're a family that's got 3 or 4 head in one lot, and that's okay if you do. But if you got 2 heifers in there and one comes in heat and 4 cattle are riding her all night while you're at the house, no fault of your own, you go out there and the tail head's gone on that calf, or maybe worse, maybe that heifer's hurt because of it, or one of the ones that's been riding her all night's hurt because of it. We keep really good records of when we got a heifer in heat, so that roughly 17 or 18 days, we're really watching close so we can get those separate and get them away from the other heifers.
Should steer hooves be trimmed?
That's one of your best questions. And it's, you can do more to ruin a head of cattle by a bad hoof trimming as much as a bad feeding program, okay? You gotta start with a good calf. You don't have to start with the best calf in the state to win. You gotta start with a good one though, and then you gotta be willing to outwork your competitor. But with that being said, and you gotta have some genetics behind them, but the hoof trimming can make or break you one bad hoof trimming. So there's some really good hoof trimmers around, and then there's maybe some that get a little bit aggressive in my way of thinking. What's really changed from the early days was cattle were bigger footed and better footed 20 years ago than they are now. We've bred a little bit of the foot out of them, and I think we're coming back. I think we're starting to do better. But it's just like the best example I can make is when you go rent a newer model car, they give you your spare tire as a donut, and they recommend you don't drive over 30 miles an hour with that if you have a flat tire. To me, if you got a 1,400-pound steer running around on that little donut tire, if you will, it typically doesn't work. So with that being said, on a typical year back in the day, 20 years ago, we would have customers come here once a month and get their feet trimmed. There's not enough foot to do that on typically now. The steer my daughter had at State Fair 2 years ago that won, 3 years ago that won, he had his feet trimmed one time, but it had to be done right. So some of them grow hoof quicker than others, but it's critical you get a good hoof trimmer.
Next question. What is the best way to halter break steers?
That's up for debate. I'll just tell you the way we do it. When we get cattle in, first thing we do is vaccinate them, and we vaccinate them no matter what the rancher, we don't raise club calves, we raise maternal bred stuff, okay? We buy all our clubby bred stuff, but let's say, for example, Taylor, I came to you and bought 3 steers, and you gave me the whole protocol of what that calf had for shots. When I get home, I ignore that. Not because I don't believe you, but because one of those 3 calves I bought from you maybe got missed that day. Or maybe, like when you give a blackleg shot, I think they'll even tell you that only covers 80%. I mean, that calf might be in that 20 percentile that isn't covered. So we vaccinate everything when they come in here as if they've never had a shot in their life. We put a magnet down them. That's a kind of our $3 insurance policy in case one would ingest a little steel out of a round bale or a bag of feed or whatever the case might be. And we give them about a week to get over the sweat of that. And then we put a halter on everything and we let them drag a halter. We let them step on their own halter for 3 or 4 days, and then we start tying them up. When you tie them up, I think it's a great idea. We put them in a pen. We might put 8 calves in one pen. And keep in mind, this is what we do for a living. We don't row crop, we don't milk cows, we sell show cattle. But we like to put those cattle in real tight, side by side tied up so they can feel the assurance of another calf, okay? And they don't get all stirred up. And then if we got some that are a little bit tough, we put them on the donkey. Our feeling on that is, rather than us wrangling them around and it's man on beast and things go wrong, they kind of keep that in their mind that maybe they hold on to that. But if you put them on a donkey, then it's animal on animal, and that's where we get our best results, is on a donkey.
Is there one color steer better than another in the show ring?
That's personal preference. I mean, most people would tell you to feed a black or a black baldy, and I wouldn't disagree with that. In the summertime, when you're fighting to win your county fair or your state fair, it's easier to get gray hair on a black one than it is on a colored one. I'm very partial to colored ones. Probably, in our opinion, the best steer that's ever been on this farm was a Charolais colored one that won Kansas City. He was, I think if you took a general consent, now that was Brock's steer, so I'm sure Brock would agree. Now Lauren, she'd say no. Mm-hmm. But we are partial to the Charolais ones, but I'm telling you, if you got thoughts of winning with the Charolais colored one at the state fair level anyway, you better be willing to roll your sleeves up, because it takes a lot of work to get them to be as good a haired as a real good haired black one. So, I don't think most judges would have a color preference. The steer that wins Denver this year, he was flat a great one, and he was Charolais colored. I'd absolutely love that calf. Mm-hmm. The reserve was black, but it wasn't in that order because of their color. It was just, that's the way it was.
What is the most important thing needed to grow hair on a show calf?
The easiest way to answer that question, the first and easy answer is genetics.
Right.
Okay. We have bred these guys that promote these club calf bulls. They are pretty genius, and they do an awesome job. But we have bred so much hair into these popular club calf sires that a lot of it is genetic. Okay. But then it's hard work after that. We start out about hide care, but genetics is first, and then keeping them hides clean, and then a lot of work. On a summertime steer, they get rinsed twice a day, every day, morning and night, and blown dry. We had again a Charolais steer here that was reserved at State Fair a few years back, and we rinsed him 3 times a day, because we wanted to get his hair as good as the black ones we were going to compete against. And it kind of took that.
What's the best way to calm down an animal before showing?
That's probably one of the tough questions you sent my way. The very best way is to take them to a show. Okay? When they get in a routine at the farm, we've even had cattle here. I got to tell this story quick. My hired man, I've had the same hired man. He probably knows more about what's going on around here than I do. And we had a steer here that was obviously really nervous. And I was traveling a lot, and I kept asking him, how's that steer doing? Oh, he's doing fine, he's doing fine. Well, he was doing fine with him. He got accustomed to him. I walked in the barn one day. I mean, I just literally walked in the room he had, and that steer went absolutely berserk because he wasn't used to me. Now that steer never got shown. Now that's an extreme case. But when we get a steer that's nervous, you know, daily, day in, day out, constant, and it needs to be the exhibitor, not grandma or grandpa or mom or dad. It needs to be the kid that's going to show that calf. They need to get familiar. Okay, that would cover most cases. But we've even, you know, we talked about Black River Falls. We've even hauled steers to Black River Falls that were nervous here on the farm, and they needed to see kids running around yelling, walk past a generator. There was some stuff they weren't going to see here in Mineral Point, and we wouldn't even show them. We'd haul them there, we'd take them to the wash rack, we'd rinse them, we'd tie them in the stall, they'd see people walking by, and that literally would break those cattle. So the next show, they were ready to go. Most of the time, if we haul onto a show, he's going in the show ring. But if we got one that's extremely nervous, we take him and let him see all that, bring him home, and then we're good the next time out.
What about ringworm? What do you do for that?
You didn't have that on your list, by the way.
Nope.
Okay, so what I would say about ringworm is start in the fall. When you get your calf in, start washing with a medicated soap. That's the best preventative way that I know of, is a medicated soap. And you need to wash them at least twice a week. Now keep in mind, around here, you know, we got cattle coming in from maybe 6, 8, 10 different states. You never know exactly what you're bringing in. We may bring one in that already had ringworm, and we try to keep him separate. We don't have enough pens to keep a bunch of individuals, because there might be 75 head running around here at one time. But when we wash them all fall long, we wash with a medicated soap at least twice a week. The best way to spread ringworm is with the clippers. We disinfect our blades, but even with that, the best way to spread it is with the clippers. And we're constantly clipping cattle to get them to sell them. So we use medicated soap. Now, am I trying to tell you that because we use medicated soap, we never get ringworm? No, that would be a falsehood. If you're in the cattle business and you never have had ringworm, God bless you, and once you get it, you own it. Once it's in your buildings. Now, what we do, if in fact, can you see this? Okay, this is called fluid film. You can buy it at a John Deere dealer, okay? I think it's for corn planters. I'm not sure what they use it for, but it's a real greasy, it's not gummy, but it's a real thick substance. We spray this on it first when we do get it, and that'll take that nasty crust off. And then we use MTG. You probably know what this is because you're a horse girl. Okay, it's mane, tail, and groom. You got to shake it up every time. If I use it right now and come back a half hour later, all the goodies are on the bottom. You got to shake this really good. Then we just put it on a cotton swab and rub it just on the ringworm. Okay, if it runs down over the hair, it's no big deal. Now, on that question you just asked about ringworm, if you talk to the next 10 cattle guys, they'll all give you a different remedy. Okay, this is just what works for us, and we have great results getting hair to come back quick on ringworm.
How often do you use the MTG?
We do that every day. Now the fluid film I showed you, we just use this. We may only have to use this once. That nasty old crust that covers the ringworm, this will take that off. It may do it in one setting, and it may take 2 or 3. Everyone's different. When the crust is gone, this goes back on the shelf, and then it's MTG every day.
Okay, tell us about the other tools that you like to use.
Okay, this is something that I recommend. Every kid has a rotobrush, okay, to grow leg hair. Even on a calf, after you get the old dead hair out, we've even used it on their sides, but that's an extreme case. We don't use it on their sides very often. But what I can tell you, I've never met any of you kids, and I've never seen any of your kids, but what I can tell you is going to happen when you use this on any calf that exists out there is when this starts, we go to Walmart and buy a reversible drill. I don't like the cord because it's just one more thing for the kid to deal with. But every calf you've ever put this on or ever will, they're going to switch their tail. And the danger of this is this wrapping the tail up in this, okay? So I suggest putting a tube sock up over the tail. That'll keep it from wrapping, or have your brother or sister or buddy hold the tail for you. Once they get used to this, I don't know if you've ever had a massage, but cattle love it once they get used to it. But since Weaver come out with this, what's called a wide range comb, we've actually started, this isn't getting used as much as it was 2 years ago, and this really stimulates hair growth. So we use this on their legs a lot, and up on their tops and over the tops of their tail heads, and so this we think really stimulates hair growth. So that's what we do for that. I told you, we use this stuff almost daily, the Pro Charge, all summer long. We like to use, about twice a week, we like to use a light oil. This is pink oil here. This is the lightest oil we have. We have Pro Gloss, but it's pretty heavy. We use that more like on show day for their necks, shoulders, and heads for a real shiny look. But it's almost too greasy, too matted down for that. So we use a lot of that. If you want to get fancy and you really want to get into the hair growing deal, Weaver's got a product called Pro Hair, okay? Now I'm not a scientist. There's something in here, they say they use it on cancer patients to get, when they've lost their hair from chemo, to make their hair grow back. We put this on them, the kids, I don't, but the kids put this on every day. We comb it in under fans, we let it dry in their hair, and that really does a good job for us growing hair. Rinsing often is a must. You want to get your cap, now here's something that you don't want to do to grow hair. A lot of times back in the day they said, when the summer starts getting warm, get your calf in and clip his head to make him cool. Don't clip his head. In the summertime, you don't clip nothing. If you want to back up 20 minutes ago when Taylor and I were talking about clipping them for the Black River Falls show, that's a timing thing. That actually clipping them for that show is going to promote them to get rid of the rest of their last year's hair. But once we start over and start game on for getting ready for the county fairs and state fairs, we don't clip a hair. We don't even clip their sheaths off. We let them get as hairy as we can let them get, but we don't clip any hair off them. So don't let anybody convince you that you need to clip their heads or something when you're a month out from your fair to make them grow hair, because it's not going to make them grow hair. It's going to promote them to slip their hair. Again, twice a day rinsings, keeping them really clean. I know what I started to say. There's been this misconception that I know people that believe that you never let your calf see sunshine if you want great hair. That's a crock, okay? Because first of all, God made them cattle. They don't know they're a show animal, okay? They're meant to have time to digest their feed. What we do, we turn cattle out at dark at night, unless we get a real cool, like if it rains some summer night and it really cools off, we like to get them cattle out of the barn. We like them to be out in their lots and be cattle, okay? If we want our steer to be gaining 3.5 pounds a day, I know some people are theory, you feed them in the mornings at 3 in the morning and you get them in the barn before the sun comes up. I don't believe that at all. I think the sun's good for their hair. Now they're not going to be out. They're not going to be outside in the sun at 8 o'clock. They're going to be in the barn under fans well before that. But they're going to get brought in when it's still cool. But I want those cattle to eat in the morning and have about 45 minutes to eat, and then go lay around in the grass for a little while, and then we get them in and go to work on them. After we rinse them, we stand them under fans, and then we put them in the barn, and they stay under fans all day.
Okay, that's all of our questions. Anything else you want to wrap up on?
I don't know if I wrote anything else down. We went over the hoof trim and how important that is. Halter breaking. Did you go through every question?
Yep, that's all of them.
Oh, you know what? Let's talk if we got time.
Yep.
Okay. Some of our supplements. Okay, and again, typically for me, I'm doing clinics all over, and I don't say this in a bragging way, but I may be in Washington State or New York doing a fitting demo for Purina. I prefer that to where I can see one-on-one with the kids, and truly, Purina treats me really good. They're like an extended family for me. So if you guys have questions after this video, you get with Taylor. I'll give Taylor my email address. Or Taylor, you can email me if they email you, type of thing. But we have so much at our disposal now, okay? Did we talk live about the Badger kickoff and the judge saying, or was that you and me talking just on our own?
Why don't you cover that now?
Okay. So about 3 years ago, we were selling kids calves. It wasn't happening with our own kids because, you know, we were seeing the cattle every day after the fact. But kids would go to the Badger kickoff. They'd show their calf, and it doesn't matter where they placed, but the judge might say, got a really nice calf, got a lot of potential, but he needs more belly. Well, first thing I can tell you is the first show you go to, unless you're feeding to try to win a prospect show, we feed cattle to try to win as a market animal. We really don't. We want to get them to a prospect show to get them broke good, and yeah, we want to compete. We'd love to win. But with that being said, oftentimes that first show you go to, your calf don't eat as good as you wish he would. He don't drink as good as you wish he would. So what's going to happen? You go out in the ring, judge place him, and he might say on the mic, really good calf. He's got this, that, and the other thing that are good about him. I wish he had more belly. Okay. Now I'm talking more about steers and heifers right now. But what happens is kids go home, then they go buy our Ultraful or our Precon, and because it gives them belly, and it does. There's nothing like it to give them belly. But I'm not going to waste my good winter months when I can be getting 3.5, 4 pounds of gain on those steers. I'm going to be feeding them Fitter's Edge with Power Fuel. I want to feed them like a fat steer. And the reason for that is you can truly change a belly in 3 weeks, but you can't take a calf that's 60 days behind your county fair. Every county fair you kids are going to exhibit at, it's going to be called the Market Steer Show. And again, I'm talking more about steers now, obviously, but it's not going to be called the 2020 whatever county fair prospect steer show. It's going to be called the Market Steer Show. And most judges, they may pick a steer that you say, well, he wasn't the best looking steer there, but they're kind of held to a criteria that it's supposed to be market ready. I've been put in that position myself, where I've judged a county fair in Iowa, and the steer I liked the best, I didn't use him because he wasn't market ready, and the program said Market Steer Show. So when you lose all that time in the winter after a judge telling you your calf needs a little more belly, you can't make that up quick enough. So you need to be feeding those steers. Feed them hard through the winter. Feed them some Power Fuel with like Fitter's Edges. That's how we feed almost everything. Our heifers we feed Full Control because there's more oats in it and more fiber in it, so we don't get our heifers quite as fat. But feed those cattle in the winter. Get that great gain on those cattle, and then you can work on that belly that last 3 to 4 weeks. So I think that's a big mistake that kids make, because right now we're in an era in the show ring where almost every judge wants them big bellied, myself included. I like them big bellied, but back in December, January, February, that's not the time to be worrying about that. Feed your calf in those cold winter months, because right now, you know, today it's not very nice out. Yesterday it was 65 degrees here. And we're not even feeding a steer for state fair this year, but now is when you got to start worrying about, okay, the weather's getting warm. I'm gonna start getting calls from kids that have bought cattle from me and say, hey, my steer's not eating as good. Mm-hmm. So that's why I want to be feeding hard in those cold winter months when they really are eating good. All
right. Anything else? Think that's good?
Let's shoot. I know. When you wash these, what I would suggest, and again, I didn't come here to think, oh, I wonder what I can get these people to spend on product. But we have wasted God knows how many thousands of dollars over the last 40 years. We just go buy soap and we tip it upside down and we spray it on the calf. Well, what happens is all the volume of soap ends up right on their top. And then, you know, the barrel of their belly, you know, when it hits the middle of their barrel, it goes right to the concrete or wherever you're washing them. You need to get you a washer, okay, a foamer they call it. And that way we can, especially when you're using that medicated soap, you can get that medicated soap on their heads, on their ears without getting it in their ears, on their chests, every inch of their body, and you use 1/3 of the soap. So while you think, well, we don't want to go spend the money on a foamer, the money you're going to save on soap, you're going to be glad you did. This is something that we've only had a foamer in our barn for about 4 years because we always cheated on the soap, and we get their tops really clean, but we weren't getting enough soap on 100% of their body. So that's something I would suggest you pick up. One other thing, are we okay for time for a minute? In the barn, this steel comb here, you will not see this in our barn. Now our show box is full of them. We only use steel combs at the show when we're putting adhesive in their legs, okay? For several reasons. First, in the barn, everything's plastic comb, okay, on a daily basis when we're combing those cattle. First of all, it's kinder. I can put this across my hand and it's not really uncomfortable. You put that across your hand and it hurts, okay? So it's more cattle friendly. What I would tell you kids when you go in showmanship, if I'm judging showmanship and you're the best showman in the class, you're gonna win the showmanship contest. Whether you got a steel comb or a plastic comb. But with that being said, I would always prefer you to have a plastic comb when you go in showmanship. Always put the teeth towards you, not out toward your calf. And the reason I want you to have a plastic comb is it's a safety thing. And if that comb was to come out of your pocket, I really like what Weaver did. They perforated these handles and they don't come out of your pocket very easy. But in the case when you're showing in showmanship, if this comb was to come out of your pocket and land upside down, you could step on it, your calf could step on it, or your competitor's calf or that person could step on it. They're a little bit dangerous that way. I mean, even really anal on show day when kids are fitting calves and we get all into the moment and they leave a comb turned upside down beside the chute for fear a calf would step out and step on that. I mean, you could ruin your project right then and there. So always use plastic combs in the barn, never steel combs. Steel combs are only for show day. When you go on showmanship, I would prefer you use a plastic comb. It wouldn't get you beat in showmanship under me, but I think it's for the best. Have we got a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay, so one thing that wasn't on our list was about showmanship. If you go, there's nothing more controversial in the whole show cattle industry than showmanship, okay? I've heard judges talk about how a kid was dressed. I don't like that. I want them to be dressed appropriate. But, the kid that wins showmanship under me can be wearing a $12 Walmart shirt or a $70 polo shirt. That part to me is irrelevant. It's how you actually show your calf. And so much goes into that, how that calf performs when you're out there. You can tell if the kid's actually working at home, in most cases. I can tell you of a situation, I was judging out in North Carolina here about 4 years ago. And a girl that I knew well, she showed Hereford cattle, good kid, good family. And I'd seen her show before and she was a phenomenal showman. But she come out in the ring that day and her heifer was in heat and the heifer was pushing her all over. Well, I in the back of my mind knew she was a great showman, but I couldn't punish another kid that day. It just wasn't gonna happen that day. I ended up putting her third in class and she totally understood it, but showmanship to me is just simply about showmanship, okay? You're gonna have a judge beat a kid because they didn't have a black or a silver show stick. That makes me angry because, in my opinion, if you can only win showmanship with a certain color show stick, they shouldn't be selling anything but those colored ones. Mm-hmm. And it almost sets a kid up for failure. So showmanship is really controversial. I mean, one judge will like one thing and another judge won't like it at all. So you're gonna get confused if you go to many shows. Your kids are gonna get confused and you as parents are gonna get confused because there's so much variance on what a judge thinks showmanship. So don't let that get you down. You may win showmanship this week and get stood fourth next week for the very thing you won with last week. The judge may not like it next week. So I think we've covered quite a bit of stuff. We've covered feeding, hair health, hoof trimming, selection. I mean, can you think of anything else you'd like to cover?
No, I think that's good. And Bob, you said that you're available by email if any of these kids have extra questions for you, so I'll certainly share that with them. And with that, thank you, and we'll call it a night.
Thanks for driving down.